Now, the other debate regarding the Constitution of America is, are all the features ultimately of British origin? Now, this debate is the debate of the ideas and the fatherhood of the ideas, Paitrutva, as they would call in Sanskrit, fatherhood. Who is the one who is coming up with origin of ideas? Americans would try to claim कि भाई हमारा सब नया, new world on the blank slate, सब पुराना छोड़ दिया हमने. But the British would try to claim कि भाई हम आप तो हमारे बच्चे हैं, जो कुछ आप लेके जा रहे हो हमसे ही आके लेके जाओ, we are going next step, that's all. But we are the ones who started all the process, we are taking it ahead. So ज़्यादा अंतर. So we have to find out at the level of ideas, constitutional ideas, कि क्या American Constitution is a child of British Constitution? So this question actually pertains to GS2 paper, comparative constitutions for you, right? But हम थोड़ा देख लेंगे यहाँ पे. So I will not go into the ideas of constitution, but let us just compare in the context. In the context now, for example, look at the British Constitution. It is, we all know, unwritten constitution. It has evolved over centuries and centuries. But it has not only evolved, along with it, the entire society, polity, economy have also evolved. So if you look at the time when for the first time we have the beginning of British Constitution, 10th, 11th century की अगर बात करें, 12th century, Magna Carta, let us take the starting point. What kind of structure is there in British political, administrative, economic society? It's a feudal era, aristocratic feudal era. Then after a few centuries, in 16th, 17th century, Hanover आता है, Stuarts वगैरह, you have the beginning of the monarchical era. The kings or perhaps the queens start becoming powerful at the cost of the aristocracy. So you have the second phase of the monarchical dynastic powerful era. Then now, over last couple of centuries, especially since the Great Reforms Act of 1832, we are in a democratic era. So the British Constitution has evolved through three different eras of human civilization: the aristocratic era, the monarchical era, and democratic era. So aaj, when you look at the features of the British Constitution, some features have originated 1000 years ago in the aristocratic era. Some features have originated in the monarchical era, and some features are new. It's a collection of all. It's an evolutionary document. So it is a very unique constitution. It's based on lots of customs and norms, and therefore it's a product of history which is unique to Britain. So it is not directly applicable to anybody else. Some ideas may be very lofty, some ideas may be very useful, but as such as it is, it cannot be replicated because it's a specific product of the history of Britain, of three evolutionary phases. American Constitution is a written constitution. मैंने कहा 7-8 पन्ने की छोटी सी बात, मतलब you can just print out and read and remember and कुछ है नहीं उसमें, पूरा start to end आप याद कर सकते, इतनी छोटी constitution है वो. Very few amendments and clauses. So it's a written constitution, it's a product of a specific historical era. यहाँ पे सब fixed है. The requirement of American society were different इसलिए, although some ideas may have come from Britain, not all ideas do. Some ideas are against and some ideas are different altogether. That is our basic idea. So was every feature of the American Constitution of British in origin? The British Constitution is an unwritten constitution that came about during the process of growth of representative parliamentary structure. American colonists were of British origin, so obviously they shared some vision with the British people. And how do we know? Because as I said, American Revolution is a Lockean revolution, and when he says that I want right, liberty and property ka right, and no taxation without representation, the very basic idea of that is that please give us the rights that all British people have, that give us representation, that manenge hum. It was due to this fact that certain provisions may be similar, but many other provisions are not similar because of specific historical juncture. Let us see why they are different. In the GS2 paper, you directly compare the constitutional provisions, उससे आपका काम हो जाता है. In history, we compare the context of the constitutional provision. अगर context नहीं तो history नहीं है. That is the fundamental. We have to say, for example, in British you have unitary government, but America is multi-ethnic, multi-racial, multicultural, multi-linguist, multi-religious society. Unitary government will not succeed. That is why America experimented with federalism, the first modern federal system. Then you go to British presented a model which fused monarchy, aristocracy and democracy into one. Through these different evolutionary eras, there was no such constraints of feudalism, aristocracy, monarchy in the US. They were based on Enlightenment idea of Montesquieu. They went for republicanism. कि हमें monarchy चाहिए ही नहीं, ब्रिटिश स्टेट चलो पार्लियामेंट लेगा, हमें वो भी नहीं चाहिए, we want republican idea. I have written one line here, वो लाइन पहले बोल देता हूँ. This is a very perceptive line I have found. D.D. Basu, he is a fantastic thinker. I am not saying कि वो पढ़ो, क्योंकि आपके पास समय नहीं होगा, एग्जाम के लिए कितनी जरूरत है नहीं पता, बट इफ यू वांट टू इंप्रूव योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द प्रोसेस, D.D. Basu is fantastic book. So he has said, not his, these words are not his words, मैंने कंट्रोल से कंट्रोल भी नहीं किया है, but I found this idea in his book only. For British parliamentary sovereignty was a solution to the monarchical despotism. So राजा जब पावर पे बनता था उसको रोकने के लिए the solution British found is parliament को sovereign कर दो, तो check and balance हो जाएगा. But in the case of America, it is a parliament of Britain which became the devil, which became the oppressive agent. तो जब अमेरिका सामने सवाल आया कि अब कैसे रोके, तो they want to constrain the parliament, and the solution came in the form of presidential structure. So आपका दुश्मन कौन है, that will decide आपका हीरो कौन होगा. ठीक है. But Americans who experienced that even the British Parliament can be despotic and threat to their freedom, it was the individual rights, judicial supremacy and separation of power that mattered more. So in the case of Britain, because the devil has been the monarchical despotism, they have complete faith in their parliament. And parliament functions on norms and customs को तोड़ते नहीं है. So parliament will take care of our protection of rights. Parliamentary supremacy. तो वो ट्रस्ट है उनका पार्लियामेंट की, बाकी उनका क्यों होगा उनके पार्लियामेंट पे, बिकॉज दे डोंट हैव हिस्ट्री ऑफ 1000 years of evolution. So people will not trust their own parliament so easily. So you have to constrain the parliament also. So balance of power चाहिए. So you don't have such balance of power in Britain. There is parliamentary supremacy. ठीक है. So again historical context is very important. Coming back, it was an unwritten constitution which had evolved through centuries in the case of Britain, but in the case of America, there is no reliance on norms and customs and tradition. ये परंपरा की बात है ही नहीं. मैं कभी कभी एज अ थॉट एक्सपेरिमेंट सोचता हूँ कि कोई लंदन पे अगर एटम बम डाल दे, जस्ट थॉट एक्सपेरिमेंट, आई डोंट हैव एनीथिंग अगेंस्ट द लंडनियर्स, सॉरी, बट assume that entire generation of people who embody those norms and customs are wiped out in some pandemic maybe, and new people come who have not received any training in the parampara of 1000 years, and they have to start from the blank slate. Will the people in Britain be able to carry their constitutional structure? It's just a thought. I have played with this thought a lot. कि the continuity of सिलसिला जो आपका चला रहा है जनरेशन बाय जनरेशन, वो कहीं बीच में ब्रेक हो जाएगा एक बार, and then there is no personal training and tutoring and apprenticeship in the process of parliament. उसके बाद आप क्या करोगे? Because you don't rely on any written document as such. अब नॉर्म्स कस्टम सोशल स्ट्रक्चर तो ऐसे टूटता है नहीं, तो चल जाता है. The British government functioned mainly based on customs and tradition, which required some consensus on basic constitutional values. In case of America, that was not available. Not only America, look at many third world countries, many recently decolonized countries, जहाँ पे ethnic strife है, their own traditional institutions are completely destroyed. जब हम बोलते हैं कि इंडिया इज मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, वो है कि नहीं ये अलग बात है, बट व्हेन वी पॉइंट आउट सम डेमोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस इन आवर पास्ट, तो वो तो खत्म हो गए. अगर वो परंपरा चलती आती तो हमारे भी नॉर्म्स कस्टम्स चलते आते, अच्छे बुरे दैट्स अ डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन, मॉडिफाई भी होते रहते हैं, बट वी हैव stopped our historical growth at one point of time and we have to restart. Same in many colonial countries, colonized countries in Africa. उनके tribal assemblies were destroyed and now they have to start from blank slate. कैसे करोगे? When you don't have norms, you end up relying on some kind of written document ताकि confusion ना रहे, consensus की बात ही ना आए बार बार, लिखा है बात खत्म. Although even that does not work, we know that constitution is as good as the people managing it. Everybody knows that. Still, the point is that American Constitution, which was a written constitution, that written idea became very important for many decolonized countries across the world. So American idea of federalism, republicanism, elected democracy in certain fashion, and even this written document, ये सारी चीजें जो है ब्रिटिश ओरिजिन की नहीं है, अमेरिकन ओरिजिन की है, and they became the lamp post guiding ideals for all the colonized countries who are getting independent, including India. So you have, if you want to go by the polity wala answer, then you make some table like this. आपको दोनों करना पड़ेगा वैसे भी. But most people end up just ratifying this table. I don't think that should be the approach. The contextualization is very important. Otherwise, the answer becomes very shallow and factual. So even in the factual way, you have rule of law, control of Congress on taxation matters, Magna Carta and Bill of Rights, fundamental rights is the main idea. So all these things are common to British and American constitution, but the differences are much numerous. You have written versus unwritten, evolutionary versus adopted, monarchical versus republican. We know British have monarchy even today. Not only monarchy, it is Anglican monarchy, Anglican church is there. So I can actually add one more point here, that there is wall of separation between state and church. In the case of America, it is not there in the case of Britain. Anglican religion is the official church of British government. It's not a secular government, technically. Something of Canterbury or Salisbury. Canterbury, I don't know. Anyway, भूल जाते हैं, अब उम्र हो गई है. So prime minister versus presidential government. You have parliamentary supremacy versus judicial supremacy. It's very simple. Although judicial supremacy was not there originally, I discussed Hamilton in the Federalist paper has originally said that the parliament has a purse, executive has a sword, judiciary has nothing. It just adjudicates between the two. So original Constitution of America did not envisage judicial supremacy. It was wrenched gradually over 19th 20th century, especially in the Lochner era of the early 20th century, with the firming up of due process of law. वो ड्यू प्रोसेस जब पावरफुल बनती है तब जुडिशरी पावरफुल बनती है, वो बाद में, बट आज के दिन में है. So no checks and balances in the case of Britain, because ultimately it's parliament which is sovereign, and checks and balances so much so this fusion of power versus, यही बात है, सेम बात एक्चुअली है. In the case of Britain, there is no judicial supremacy. Judiciary is also not technically completely independent from parliament, because judiciary comes out of Privy Council, House of Lords. Originally House of Lords के जो लॉर्ड्स थे राज्यसभा के, वही बनते सुप्रीम कोर्ट जज. वहां से बनती धीरे धीरे उनकी जुडिशियरी, टॉप जुडिशियरी. तो जुडिशियरीज ओरिजिन इन यूके इज इन हाउस ऑफ लॉर्ड्स, प्रिवी काउंसिल. तो इवन दैट इज नॉट इंडिपेंडेंट कंप्लीटली, बट परंपरा है, नॉर्म से तो वो इंडिपेंडेंट डिसीजन लेंगे. यूनिटरी वर्सेस फेडरल, ऑल्दो ग्रेजुअली ब्रिटिश ऑल्सो आर रियलाइजिंग, अगर उनको स्कॉटलैंड का कुछ पार्ट, आयरलैंड का कुछ पार्ट कंट्रोल में रखना है, दे हैव टू गो फॉर फेडरल आइडिया. दे कैन नॉट बी सो यूनिटरी ऑल द टाइम. इंग्लिश का पोजिशन नहीं चलेगा, नहीं चलेगा. Single citizenship versus dual citizenship, we know that already. And natural rights versus bill of rights. So natural rights मतलब some natural which are inalienable, they are not enumerated in any document. परंपरा से आपका अधिकार है, सो है. So these are the differences. UPSC has asked 3 questions and the question has not been asked on this topic since 2016. So there is a possibility they may ask sometime. What were the factors that worked in the drafting of the American Constitution? देखा है पहले, डिबेट सारे दोनों किस्म के. Look at the 3 compromises also. Interest is factors, और क्या है? Do you end the background of the failure of Articles of Confederation? Do you agree with Beard's view of the Constitution being an economic document? Well, we have taken the stance also. We don't agree with him completely. He has not given us complete picture. Ideas also matter. How far is it correct to say that every feature of the American Constitution was ultimately of English origin? You have taken, हाँ ठीक है. Whenever you have how far, by default, it means critically analyze. Same होता है. Because when you say how far, it means thus far and not further. कुछ है कुछ नहीं है. When you have both the sides, it is critical analysis. So how far मतलब कुछ similarity है, कुछ dissimilarity भी है, and why you have that dissimilarity, third aspect. Then explain the main features of the US Federal Constitution. तो सबसे simple question है, features की listing कर दो बस. But don't do it GS way, add some context, historical context. Then this topic was very easy.